And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children, hockey fans of all ages, wherever and whenever you may be listening to this. I'm your host, Matt McLaughlin, alongside a very special guest. This man will kill you not only on the mic, but inside the ring, figuratively, of course. He is the one and only two-time tag team champion in Impact Wrestling, the one and only Showtime, Eric Young. Eric, thank you for hopping on the show, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. Obviously, massive fan of bench clears, have been since they first came out, and always good to talk something I love and talking hockey, maybe a little wrestling, and who knows what else.
So how did you become a hockey fan? I feel like everyone has that moment where they saw the ice, saw maybe a fight or two, and was like, this is the sport for me.
Well, I was born in Canada. They don't give you a lot of choice.
Yes, of course.
It's part of the fabric of the country. Grew up in a small farm town in the middle of nowhere, just outside of Chatham, Ontario, which is not a big city, but that was a big city to me. That's about 30 minutes from where I grew up, in a town called Florence. I think it's actually classified as a village, population of like 60 or 70 people. No traffic light. There was one store that was a restaurant, video store, grocery store, post office, candy store, and basically everything. That was the only store we had until I was in high school. Then there was a pizza place open where I worked and grated cheese and did deliveries. But yeah, I mean, I've loved hockey my whole life. I didn't play organized hockey until around Pee Wee, but always played pond hockey and road hockey. It was just like, you didn't even have to set it up. You got off the bus, you went home, you pretended to do road homework, and then we all met on Jane Street and played hockey every day.
So who was your guy? Were you a Gretzky guy, Lemieux? Who was your guy?
I mean, you love Gretzky and you love Lemieux, but I grew up a Maple Leafs fan. My favorite player of all time is Wendell Clark. I've got two or three of his jerseys. I actually met him at his restaurant. I was just happened to be there, and I was like, I'll go to Wendell Clark's restaurant. And I was sitting there, and there was a UFC event, and I sat there for like 3 or 4 hours drinking and eating. And then he came over and introduced himself, and it blew my mind to have a puck signed by him. I would never ask him for it, but he gave it to me. We got chatting about wrestling, and he knew some about it, and, would run into the guys back in the day in Maple Leafs Gardens, but loved him. Loved Killer, Doug Gilmour, loved Dave Anderchuk, loved Mark Messier, loved Ryan Graves. I mean, I'm a sick person, man. I mean, I've been watching hockey since I was 3 or 4. I watch way more of it now because technology allows me to watch way more of it. But I mean, probably this year I watched in between 200 and 300 games.
Wow. So how sick to your stomach were you when that Game 7 loss, final horn goes off? How sick to your stomach were you?
I'm calloused, man. Just like the rest of the Maple Leafs, just like the rest of the Maple Leafs fans, I'm calloused. You're used to it. You didn't want it to happen, but you knew that it was going to happen. Some sports franchises, some sports teams, they're just cursed, and there's no doubt there's some kind of a curse going on. I think that in the last 10 years, this is the best team they've had on paper. Look, there's no shame in taking the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions, and who could possibly win it again this year, the Tampa Bay Lightning, to 7 games. They get a couple bounces, and we're talking about them playing the New York Rangers or whatever, so it's completely, fine. There's 60 goals by Matthews, 7 games where, it could have gone either way. But look, I mean, this has got to end at some point, right?
Listen, as a Philly fan, if the Eagles can win a Super Bowl, a Super Bowl, anything can happen in sports. Anything can happen. It's
all possible, guys. It's all possible. And the Eagles with Nick Foles proved that can happen. So yeah, I'm a crazy football person too. I definitely, it's 1A, 1B. I don't follow much about football right now. I don't have the bandwidth. I'm just so into hockey. I've got Dangle Bet Selly, a show that I host co-host twice a week on FTN Network and Game Plus Network and YouTube and any digital platform, basically. So I'm really engrossed in hockey. But the second that someone raises the Stanley Cup, like literally I'll stay awake that night till 3 or 4 in the morning, kind of scouring articles and reading and consuming. And I've got 600 football podcasts that I have to start going through before now and the start of the season. And I will go through them all. And my fandom will switch from hockey into football, but right now it's full blown hockey.
So who do you think comes out of the conference finals and goes to the Stanley Cup final right now?
For me, I've been saying this, and it was recorded, so you can go back in the archives and look. I'm not making this up. I said Tampa Bay would play Colorado for the Stanley Cup. I still believe that that's what happens. My wallet wants the New York Rangers. I guess a new exercise for me is I drink heavily. Late about a week before the season starts during the preseason of the NHL. I drink heavily, and then I open my betting apps and I make futures on teams that I think could play for the Stanley Cup. Now, I'm not saying Rangers was the only one, but I do have a bet, not a sizable one, but because of the odds, I will be definitely in the positive column for the year if the Rangers play for the Stanley Cup. And I had, the Senators were in there, New Jersey, kind of like just teams that I thought were going to be improved that, if a couple of things happen right, they could play for the Stanley Cup. And I think the Rangers are proving that I know what I'm talking about.
Clearly. I mean, you were on top of that. I had the Flyers riding high to like the conference finals or something crazy like that. And then
Bless your heart.
Yeah, in October, I was like, back down to reality. That's not going to happen anytime soon.
Started the year well. I mean, look, I was with the Athletic before this. We got let go at COVID when they kind of pared down their staffing. The Athletic is still a product I consume and love. I have a lot of good friends there. I read it almost daily, and I wrote an article on Carter Hart on how he was going to be the answer for this team and was going to be the next thing in goal. And that's a curse that exists for them. The Toronto Maple Leafs can't get out of the first round, and the Philadelphia Flyers are not allowed to have good goaltending. Those are the rules.
Which is weird because the Flyers have two of probably the greatest goalies of all time, and Bernie Parent and Ron Hextall to their names. And I don't necessarily people want to throw the blame on Carter Hart. That defense, the Flyers defense this year was atrocious. And also Ryan Ellis only played 4 games. 4 games. You mean to tell me that over a season, Provorov doesn't at least feel much better if Ellis is there for 60 instead of 4?
Oh, for sure. Ryan Ellis is like I'm a Nashville Predators fan. That's my team by choice. I moved to Nashville in 2004, and that became my adopted team. I will always be a Maple Leafs fan, but my number one team is the Nashville Predators. I watched Dan Ellis play. I saw him drafted by this team. I spoke at a development camp here. They had me. Scotty Nickel is a buddy of mine, and I went up and spoke at the prospects camp when him and Seth Jones first signed. I'm geeking out because I know who these guys are because I'm a lunatic, and I'm like, I can't believe that I'm meeting them, and I'm up there telling them to work hard and blah 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 blah. I don't know whatever I said, but
you're like Will Ferrell. You're like Will Ferrell and Elf when Santa Claus is coming.
100%. That's who I was. Except I had my world championship with me and drove my motorcycle. So instantly I was accepted and still buddies with a bunch of the players to this day. And that's my team. I do a bunch of stuff with the team. I do their charity golf tournament and their bowling tournament. And Mike Fisher does a charity skeet shooting thing that I'm terrible at, but I do that every year. I'm even worse at golf, and probably even worse than bowling. So did you
watch the match last night? With Brady Rogers, the match, Capital One's the match on TNT. It was like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes.
I saw a bunch of stuff on Twitter about it. I mean, the truth is like I'm somehow married and watch 200 to 300 hockey games a year.
Something's got to give.
I can't watch any more sports. It's hockey and football, and I consume the UFC pretty religiously as well. So that's it for me. I mean, no other sport exists. I couldn't name 5 baseball players. I couldn't name 5 football or 5 basketball players. I couldn't name 2 golfers. I mean, Tiger Woods, I can name it. I think he still plays.
Yeah, he still plays.
Yeah, he still plays.
Not very well, but still.
But other than that, I mean, I obviously know who Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are, but I'm not wasting my time watching them golf.
It was great shit talking. That's why
I'm sure
it was great.
I did see the quote by Charles Barkley, who's one of the all-time greatest brothers of all time, and he says he doesn't have to deal with Shaq, that idiot Shaq, or whatever he said. Those guys are priceless. I mean, I would watch those two talk about anything.
It's appointment television. You sit down and say, "I'm going to watch Shaq and Chuck for however long this pregame and postgame is going to be."
3/4 of the time, I don't even know what they're talking about. I know nothing about basketball. Nothing.
No, you're just waiting for the trash talking, like when Barkley called Shaq Petty White. All-time television moment.
Unbelievable.
So how did you get into wrestling? How, like, obviously there's the lifelong love of it, but
Yep.
when did you decide, like, okay, I'm actually going to pursue this as my career?
Yeah. So I don't, like I said earlier, I grew up in Florence, Ontario. It was this tiny farm town in the middle of nowhere. I think like when you're a young kid, like doing it for a living is not something that even seems attainable, you know.
Yeah.
I wanted to play hockey in the NHL. I quickly found out around the 8th or ninth grade. I think I was maybe 8th grade, maybe ninth grade. I don't remember exactly. But I played in an open game against this guy that grew up in my town. His name was Nate Sewell. Was an unbelievable hockey player, huge guy, 6'4", over 300 pounds. He was huge, definitely overweight, but like could skate, could shoot. He was kind of this like raw materials guy. He's going to go into the NHL. The Hunter brothers are going to get their hands on him, and he's going to become this massive star. He was Eric Lindros before Eric Lindros existed. And he had just been drafted into the OHL. I think he was 4th overall in the OHL. He grew up in Florence in this town. It was this huge deal for us. And I played an open game with him during the summer. And he's like, look, guys, I'm not going to take it easy on you because I'm in training to start my career. I believe I was drafted by North Bay, I believe. And anyways, so he gets on the ice and there's just nothing you can do. I mean, like you can't catch him. I couldn't knock him down. I couldn't take the puck from him. I couldn't, like, it was embarrassing, and that was in that moment I realized like, I'm not even going to play like junior hockey, let alone in the NHL. And I still play hockey to this day poorly, but it's a love of mine that will never go away. If I can somehow get the equipment on, I will continue to play until I can't. So I'm not going to play hockey, but I'd always loved wrestling. I don't think when I was a young kid, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. But, probably around 8th or ninth grade when hockey kind of transitioned and I started getting more and more into wrestling. And I kind of decided like, look, I hate school. I am not good at it. I don't like being told what to do. All my friends are going to go to Fanshawe College and, waste 80 grand, and just drink and eat pizza and end up not graduating anyways. And that's what I would have done. So I was like, well, I'll give this pro wrestling thing a try when I'm young and I can. And if I break my neck or I stink at it or something terrible happens, I can go to college when I'm 25 or 30. So right after high school, about 2 weeks after high school, I moved to Cambridge, Ontario, where there was a wrestling gym, a training gym, and started training. And one thing led to another, and it was kind of a long journey, but signed my first contract in 2004, saying that this is what I do for a living. And I've made a very good living at it ever since, and traveled all over the world. And, I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. I've done very well for myself. But for me, it's this short, chubby guy from Southwestern Ontario that was told he was never going to do anything. And I'm doing exactly what I set out to do in high school. I'm a pro wrestler. That's what pays my bills. That's what's provided me this amazing life. And, I've all these other cool opportunities have opened up. I had my own television show on Animal Planet. I'm hosting a hockey show. It happened again. I don't know what's going on, man.
It's got to be the Wi-Fi or something.
Strange. Anyway. But yeah, anyways, that's, I've loved it my whole life. I was there at 8 years old at WrestleMania 3 and watched Hogan slam Andre and watched Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Macho Man tear it up for the Intercontinental title. And, have just, it started probably 8th or ninth grade. I just couldn't consume enough of it. I'm trading tapes with strangers that live in California and sending them every dollar I have so they can send me tapes of Japanese wrestling and wrestling from Mexico and wrestling from all over the world and pay-per-views that I didn't have, reading about it and learning about it, and then started training, and just it consumed my life. I can say, like, other than my parents and my sister, it was the first thing I loved in life, like actually loved, and just I lived it, breathed it, slept it, bled it. Like it was my life, and is still a massive part of my life.
So I was right around the same age when I first started loving wrestling. Like it was like 7th, 8th, ninth grade, somewhere around there. And for me, it was like, oh my God, these characters that get to talk shit and B, they get to go out and entertain, 20,000 and then millions more watching. Was there like one pro wrestler that you said, I want to be like this guy? Like for me, that was Stone Cold Steve Austin. I wanted to go in, swear, call everyone a piece of trash, flip them off, give them a stunner, chug a beer, and then get out. Like that would be my ideal spot. Was there obviously Canadian influence, like the Hart family? Was there one specific wrestler you were like, I want to be like him or her?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to be Steve Austin? That's the truth. I mean, be one of the greatest of all time. A good buddy of mine. I've done his podcast twice. Like, hung out at his house in LA and drank 24 beers with him one night.
Is that weird? Is that a pinch yourself moment?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I didn't do it in the moment, but like I get in the car and I'm heading back to the hotel, and I was like, I just hung out with Steve Austin for 6 hours, and I drank 12 beers. I drank 12 Miller Lights. Now he's got to go get more beer because I drank it all on him. But amazing, like an amazing thing. For me, the number one guy for me was Shawn Michaels, always has been and always will be. I wrote articles for ESPN while I was in the WWE, 3 or 4 articles for them. And I wrote one of them, and the one I'm most proud of is this. It's called My Love Letter to the Heartbreak Kid. And it's this really interesting story. I won't get into the details of it, but how our careers kind of crisscrossed, and he wouldn't know it because he's just a busy super famous wrestling star traveling all over the world. But when I was very young, I met him, and some things he said to me kind of shaped me and formed me. But him, bell to bell, he's the best wrestler to ever live. It's not close. You will never convince me there's been somebody better. Still to this day. I mean, obviously I loved Bret Hart, I loved Owen Hart, love Ricky the Dragon, love Macho Man. Terry Funk is a massive influence on me. Ric Flair is a massive influence on me. I mean, Steve Austin, Triple H, it's a long list, man. Like I said, like when I say I loved wrestling, like it's almost disgusting, I needed help, to be honest.
Exactly. And I was the same way. Like my parents were getting kind of concerned. They were like, you just sit inside and just watch like documentaries on like The Rock all day. And I was like, why wouldn't I? Don't want to do anything else. Why would I want to? Who needs sunlight anymore? That's optional now.
Yeah, that's right.
So what was like one fun story or interaction with someone in the locker room? Because like for me as a fan, that's something that I always like dream of being, is in a wrestling locker room and just like hearing guys share stories and stuff like that. Was there one moment like that, one interaction?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, another guy that I loved when I was younger was Sting. He worked for TNA very early on. I was part of like part of his kind of like origin story coming back, where Eric Young knew Sting was coming and no one else believed me, and I kept telling him like, oh, like kind of like Santa Claus, like, oh no, Sting's gonna come. He's like, oh, he's retired, this, that, and the other. And I had the pleasure and the honor of wrestling him in his first match back in like 10 years. And one of the cool stories is, I mean, this is a guy I've idolized, and I call him, his real name is Steve, and I call him Steve because I think it irritates him, so I always call him Steve. Really cool guy. Me and him hit it off right away. But there we are. Like I'm going to do this promo where I'm going to be dressed as Sting, and he brings his exact, I mean, guess what you guys would call it, a costume that he wore for Clash of the Champions '89. It's pink trunks, red boots, and he painted my face the exact same that he had painted. And like I had blonde hair at the time, and they cut it kind of into like a flat top. And I'm in in this bathroom at Universal Studios talking to Sting, and he's painting my face. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if 14-year-old Eric Young could see this happening, he would not believe that it's real, like in any way, shape, or form. I wore his gear, I wore his jacket. He's lucky he got it back. Like I didn't get it back to him, but that was a surreal moment for me.
But
sure.
So you're in the locker room with Sting. What was that?
Yeah.
What was that moment like, as as someone who aspired to be a pro wrestler, but you almost don't think it doesn't happen?
Yeah, it's surreal. I mean, there's so many of those. I try to behave myself. I'm part of the industry. I've got the same skill set he has. I've actually probably had more matches and wrestled on TV longer than Sting did, which is pretty wild to think now.
That is crazy.
Much bigger star than I've ever been. But the fact that we shared a locker room. I wrestled him. We became pretty good friends. I can call him Steve to his face and he doesn't, blow me off and ignore me. It's surreal. He's painting in my face. I've got his gear on. It's definitely, it was like, it didn't really dawn on me at the time, but like later that night thinking about it is when it happened. But, I've had a bunch of those, man, just sharing locker rooms with people that I idolize and working in NXT together with Shawn Michaels. I guess it would have been my first takeover or maybe my second one. I wrestled Sean Spears, Ty Dillinger, whatever you want to call him. I trained him when he was young, and I'm not much older than him, but he came to my wrestling school. So I trained Sean Spears how to wrestle. I mean, most of the things that he knows, he learned from me. Much better looking, much taller, much better athlete, much better wrestler than I am. But I was his trainer, and then we wrestled each other at TakeOver, and Shawn Michaels was our producer, our agent in that match, and helped us put the match together. And we come to the mat back, and the match went really well. And he's like bouncing around like a 5-year-old at Christmas morning. And I was like, is this real life? Like he's more excited than me, and it's just so cool. And he's always been cool to me. Used to hear these nightmare stories, how difficult he was, this, that, and the other. But when I met him, he was a much different person in a much different place. And I believe I owe a lot of who I became to him. And I'll share the small story as part of the article. If you really want to see read the whole thing, if you type in, you Google my letter to the Heartbreak Kid, I'm sure it's out there somewhere on the internet through ESPN. But I was doing a tryout match, a dark match, which is a match that doesn't air. They happen before the television cameras are turned on in Grand Rapids, Michigan. At this time, Monday Night Raw is rolling. I'm 20 years old, 21 years old. And they announced me from Grand Rapids. So I'm the hometown guy. The guy that I was wrestling wasn't very good. And I had been told as such from Alex Shelley and Chris Hero and a couple other local guys. Nice guy, but just wasn't very good. And this is basically a tryout match for me. And I had kind of ran into Sean earlier in the day, but he was opening Raw. So he's standing in the go position as I'm about to go to the ring, which is adding to my nerves. Like now, Shawn Michaels, the person I idolize most in life, could possibly watch this match. Anyways, the match was fine. Did pretty well. And, I come to the back and I'm kind of thanking everybody. And he kind of grabs my arm as I go by him. He's like, hey man, just want to say, good work. And that's one of the best dark matches I've ever seen. Not the best. He just said one of the best, kind of casually in passing, kind of complimenting me. And it took everything in my power to not cry in front of him. I'm a pretty emotional person, and I'm not a religious person, but that would be like, if you're a Christian, that would be like God showing up at your house and saying, man, you're doing a great job. And that's what it was like. And literally from that moment in time, I never doubted myself again. I knew that I was going to do it for a living. I knew that I was good enough to do it for a living. And I proved myself and him right in the long run.
Yeah. And you get to WWE, that's like, to use a baseball analogy, that's the major leagues. That's where
100%. Yep. 100%.
That's where the best of the best supposedly compete. When you got to NXT, there's, as a fan, I've seen it feels like there's so much of a gap in quality with NXT and the main roster of Raw, SmackDown, stuff like that. And that's just the way it's felt like, especially when you have yourself, Samoa Joe, Shinsuke Nakamura, like these guys, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa in recent years, who've come through and just put up these quality matches. Like, what was that like for you to finally burst onto the scene of NXT specifically in 2016? And how did this idea of sanity come about and stuff like that? What was that whole journey like?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, for me, like you said, that's where I've wanted to work my whole career. I would say, the majority of my experience there was not very good. The NXT experience was amazing. And I literally consider it two different things. Yes, my check still came from the WWE, but NXT was a completely different brand, ran by Hunter and Canyon Seaman and a bunch of other guys there, Matt Bloom and Norman Smiley and Scott Garland, and the list goes on and on and on with these amazing people, amazing producers, Steve Carino, Shawn Michaels, eventually Terry Taylor. Just an amazing group of people there. And I loved it. I never wanted to leave NXT. I wanted to go to the main roster and make that money, but I loved NXT. The Sanity thing was Hunter kind of had this idea of this group, and he wanted to call him Sanity, and he saw a promo I did against Bobby Roode or something at some time, and he said, that's the guy, that's the guy that I want to be the leader of this group, and if he becomes available, I'm going to hire him. And I came available, and he hired me, and the rest is kind of history, man. Sanity is something I'm very proud of. We were one of the top acts in the company, tag team of the year, match of the year for War Games, working with guys like Adam Cole and Alistair Black and Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura, Bobby Roode, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. It was, in my opinion, the hottest wrestling product, and maybe the best wrestling product over the last 10 years was NXT during that run. The FTR guys, Cass and Enzo, the list, Gable and oh my God, he's a buddy of mine, and I can't think of his name. Jason Jordan.
Jason
Gable
Jordan,
and Jason Jordan.
Yeah.
I can see his face. He's a really good buddy of mine, and I just blanked on his name.
He's one. I literally looked this up the other day too, and I was like, "Fuck!" I just looked this up.
Yeah. So yeah, I loved it there. I loved it there. It was a very collaborative effort. Like the music was picked by me. The look was picked by me. The lights was picked by me. I was very involved in all of it. And I think, the proof is in the pudding. Like I didn't do any of this on my own. Often in wrestling, you're not doing anything on your own. You're working with somebody or with a group of people to get the final product. And I'm not taking the credit, but I was a huge part of Sanity's decisions and Sanity's success, and it's something that I'm very, very proud of.
And you should be proud of it. Like for me as a fan, NXT was like the hardcore wrestling fans go-to show, because you're going to get the best quality. And for people that doubt that, TakeOver 2019, 2018, it was Shinsuke Nakamura's debut, TakeOver in Brooklyn, electric crowd. That's one of the matches that stands out to me. And Sanity, I remember watching that clip of Sanity's debut, and I was like, holy fuck, what is this? And I asked this question not to throw shade on the people at the main roster, but to me, it feels like Triple H or Hunter's approach or philosophy is like a player that becomes a general manager, where he knows both sides and he's willing to give the wrestlers and the acts creative input at least, whereas the main roster doesn't really do that, and they kind of want to take control into their own hands. Is that fair to say, or am I kind of missing something?
Yeah, no, that's very fair. There's lots that go into it. And, I've mentioned this a million times in wrestling interviews and stuff. There's no hard feelings. I'm not the first person they've missed on. I will not be the last. My kind of go-to thing is you can look at, Kenny Omega, bell to bell, could be the best in-ring performer in the last 10 years. I think you could argue that any day of the week. The guy that I immensely respect, and a guy that I would love to have a chance to wrestle one day. He didn't last 6 months, so
yeah.
It's not personal. It's, Vince was always kind to me, was always respectful. I was a fan of mine at one point, which is why I ended up on Raw, and the other two guys went back to NXT. But yeah, it's just business, man. And I'm a believer in fate. I've got it tattooed underneath my right arm. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I wasn't meant to be there. That wasn't for me. Could I do it? Yes, I would put my skills against anybody. I can carry my weight in talking and wrestling and in anything in pro wrestling. I'm just as good or better than anybody in the business. And that's his loss. I told him to his face, he's wasting my time. I was told that he wanted to be confronted. It's what he liked. So I did. And I told him that I'm really good at it. And all he has to do is tell me what he wants, and I'll do it better than he thinks I can. Then 6 weeks later, I got fired. So maybe it was not the day to confront him, but there's no hard feelings. I'm not bitter about it. I would tell him to his face. I told him to his face, if you've got a 3-hour wrestling show and you can't find 10 minutes for me to do something on it, then you failed. And I would say that to his face if he walked in here right now. He will never see this. He will never see any of the other 100 interviews where I've said the exact same quote, but that's just the truth. This he missed, and he failed himself and he failed his company by not having me part of it. And that's fine. Wrestling fans and then Impact Wrestling get to reap the benefit. So,
and for me, it really bothers me because I'm one of those people that's like, oh, not always, but like with wrestling, it's like you need new stuff. You can't be relying on, the same acts or type of storylines. And granted, you can only do so many storylines, but with Sanity, it felt like that was the, kind of the breath of fresh air that the sport needed, like a new stable, which an effective stable hasn't really been put together since, you could say, the Shield, maybe Evolution, if you even don't want to consider the Shield in that conversation. And so for Sanity, it was like something completely new. All that to say, with Vince, it kind of bothers me because it's like, to use again like a football analogy, it's like the GM that overthinks things and takes like the lesser known prospect compared to like the no-brainer. To use the Eagles, Howie Roseman picked Jalen Reagor over fucking Justin Jefferson, which will never live that down. But that's a similar situation in my opinion.
Yeah, it could happen. I mean, and like I said, he's not concerned about it. He's just busy making billions of dollars. Being one of the most successful business people on earth, creating network television. People will tell you it was baseball and it was this. If you look at history and you look at timing, Vince McMahon and pro wrestling invented network television and how it exists today. Vince McMahon was 10 years in front of everybody on streaming apps and putting all your stuff into one place. He's a super genius. He's got more wins than he's got losses. I have an amazing life and live in a beautiful house and have all these amazing things because Vince McMahon said, nope, fuck you. Pro wrestling is mainstream and I'm going to prove it. And he did. It's $1 billion industry. And there's 20 to 40 hours of wrestling content written, produced, shot, and distributed in the world weekly right now, and it's all because of him. We all owe him a massive debt of gratitude. As a person that can, you produce this podcast, and like the hours of work that it takes for you to do this is insurmountable to an average person. They don't understand what it takes. The fact that the WWE can produce 20 to 25 hours of original content weekly is insane. It's a juggernaut. It should not be scoffed at. It should not be made fun of. Other companies should be looking at what they're doing and copying them.
And to Vince's credit, he's balanced so many egos and, people that may be not satisfied with their place in the company. And he still figures out a way to get that machine running as smoothly as it does, to the point where you don't even notice it. And then you hear something on like Twitter or whatever. So you leave WWE, you go to Impact. What has it been like now? Are you having more fun, or is your love for wrestling kind of back now that you're back in Impact and, you're having fun again?
Yeah, definitely having fun. I mean, like the reality is being in the WWE and, making that main roster money and being part of the big machine was an amazing experience, and I wouldn't change any of it, Part of the thing that I wouldn't change is it gave me a chip on my shoulder, like I know that I can do it. I know that I'm good at it. And I knew all I had to do is be given an opportunity, and I could show that I'm still very good at it and still one of the best all-around performers in the business. And I've done that at Impact. And I mean, Scott D'Amore and Anthem Sports have created this really cool thing. It's I'm having the most fun I think I've probably ever had in my career. And it's a long one. I've been doing this a long time. And part of it is kind of the same model as Hunter said. I mean, in the end, Hunter makes the decisions, and Impact is Scott D'Amore makes the decisions. It comes down to him, yes or no, and this goes on and this does not. But it's a very collaborative effort, and what Impact I think is doing better than most companies right now is it's taking the talent that they have, figuring out what they're good at, and shining the light directly on that. They don't have the budget, and they don't have the production value, and this, that, and the other, and the crowds aren't as big and all this other stuff. But minute for minute, it's the best professional wrestling product on TV. It's written by professional wrestlers for professional wrestling fans with professional wrestling in mind. We're not trying to be something else. We're not trying to be a mainstream product. We're not trying to be the WWE. We're not trying to be AEW. We're doing our own thing, and we're not concerned with what they're doing. And I think minute to minute that we're producing the best 2-hour show, pro wrestling show out there right now. I don't think it's close, and that's biased, right? Because I work there, but I've been a wrestling fan since I was 3. You know, I consume this more than almost any human being on earth. And I think if you break it down minute to minute, it's the best, most full and best representation of what pro wrestling is on TV today.
So is that because, like, what are the certain aspects that makes it so good? Is it the writing? Is it the storytelling? Is it the mic work? Is it the actual action itself that's like a mix of fast and slow pace? Like for me as a wrestling fan, I consider myself casual, but what in your mind makes it what specific like features make it the best, most representative of pro wrestling in its core?
Yeah, it's all of those things. So it's like wrestling is the ultimate variety show, right? Like you could watch a 2-hour show and something will make you laugh, and something will make you mad, and something will make you happy, and something will make you sad, and something will make you wonder, and something will be a mystery, and something will be solved, and there will be a yes, and there will be a no, and there will be black, and there will be white, and there will be gray, and there will be winners, there will be losers. Like it is the ultimate variety show. And with Impact, it's like I said, I think they're kind of the thing that they've really figured. The writing is excellent. You know, the production team there, you know, with this a much smaller budget, a much smaller crew, is producing some of the best video packages and promo packages in wrestling ever. You know, if you're being honest with yourself and just watching it without your WWE rose-colored glasses or your AEW rose-colored glasses or your Ring of Honor or your independent or whatever you want to watch, if you just watch it as a fan and enjoy it like it should be enjoyed, it's some of the best stuff. So it's this huge collaborative effort. And I said it before, but I mean it. It's like everyone's got their hand on this rope and we're pulling it at the same time in the same direction. And you know, we don't have the strongest people and we don't have as many people, but the reality is we're pulling it in a positive direction for Impact, because this company has doubled in size in the last 2 years since I've been here. You know, it's seen in over 80 countries now. Its digital presence is massive, both online and on YouTube all over the world. So yeah, it's it's growing and getting bigger. I know they're working on getting back on TV in the United Kingdom. This is where. Is it back?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
We're
So
really powering through technological.
We're powering through. Yeah, it's it's just a cool thing to be part of, man. It's being part of, with sports and I'm sure you've played sports, being part of the team that is an underdog, that isn't respected like it should be, and succeeding regardless of the things that are stacked against you is a beautiful thing, man. And Scott D'Amore and Anthem Sports and Impact Management have cultivated this really cool atmosphere, this unbelievable place, the best locker room I've ever been part of. And I'm not saying skill wise, like I'm just saying it's a group of people that care about what they're doing and care about each other as much as they possibly could. Look, we're all in this for ourselves and we're all independent contractors. And in the end, we have to look out for each other. But almost everybody here understands if I want to be successful, the show has to be successful first. And I think it's glaring in the product.
And what's special about you compared to most wrestlers is I think that you figured out a way to manage wrestling while also you're writing articles, like you mentioned, for ESPN and The Athletic, and you have your own shows and stuff like that. How did all these like other ventures come about where you wanted to like kind of branch out and diversify a little bit?
Yeah, I've always been interested in so many different things. I always say this, I'm an experiential person. I want to experience everything, good, bad, and indifferent. That's what I think life is, and traveling and meeting people and seeing different cultures and different things and experiencing different things. And in wrestling, I have this kind of like singular kind of career where like I've seen the card from every angle, and I'm sure somebody that's a wrestling historian could point out to other people that have done it. But for me, like I've been the opening match, I've been tag champ, I've been world champ, I've been good guy, bad guy. I was wrestling women before it was a thing that was cool. I've held every title. I've been the main event. I've been the popcorn match. I've been, a dark match. I've done all of it. Right. So I have this really distinct, thick broad lens that I can see wrestling through and understand wrestling through. And I don't think there's very many people that can say that they have the level of experience. They, a lot of guys, and it's not a knock on them. It's they do one thing and they do that one thing very well for their entire career. Well, I've done 40 things and I've done all of them well. I haven't been the best at any one of them, but I've done all of them at a very high level. And through wrestling, and that's why I will always love wrestling. It'll always be a huge part of my life. It's opened up all these other doors, and I think I'm not comparing myself to The Rock because I'm not in his league, but he showed the world that the skill set of a pro wrestler can be manipulated in other ways. I mean, you can't argue with his success. He's the most recognizable human being on the planet. Me and him have the same toolbox. His is much bigger and much prettier.
Features a lot more steroids.
It features a lot more everything, skill and looks and charisma and all the other things. But I have the same toolbox that he does. And he always says this. And I think I showed this when I had the fishing show and I did other things. Pro wrestlers will not be outworked. I've done 1,000 times things worse for less money than you ever have. So, I just won't be outworked. And for me, having all these other interests and passions, and also wrestling has filed these really cool communication skills and marketing skills. And in the end, wrestling and entertainment is sales. I'm selling myself. I'm selling my character. I'm selling my physical ability. I'm selling my words. In the end, it's sales. And in the end, all these things, writing, sports talk, it's sales, and that's what wrestling does, is it gives you this really cool tool belt where you can kind of, adapt. Not all pro wrestlers have this tool belt, but I definitely do. And I've learned it through not complaining and just kind of taking anything that was given to me and making that the best I can, which is why I've experienced the card from so many different angles, which is why I had my own TV show, which is why I wrote for ESPN, why I wrote for The Athletic, why I have my own hockey show on FTN Network and Game Plus Network. So I refuse to say no, and I refuse to take no for an answer.
So do you take the lead on most of these ventures? Are you starting the contact with these companies? Because I feel like as ESPN, it's very off the beaten path for them to be like, yeah, let's have an actual wrestler who's active right now write articles for us.
Yeah, no, that was definitely them. They had definitely a deal in place with the WWE, and were looking for different wrestlers who were in different positions kind of all over the company, writing articles about whatever it is that they thought was interesting. And I said I was interested. I didn't have, a ton to say about the WWE experience because I had just got there and whatever. But I kind of wrote things that were personal to me that I think wrestling fans really enjoyed, and wrestling fans in general, they like that pull of the curtain, right? Like I'm not giving away any trade secrets. I'm just saying, this is a real world, and I'm this short, chubby kid from Canada, and I did it, and you can do it too. And this was part of my journey, and found out through that and working for The Athletic that I'm a pretty decent writer. And Nando DeFino was a guy that works for The Athletic, and he said, dude, you're a good storyteller. That makes you a good writer. Grammar and spelling, not my strong suit. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I make tons of mistakes. But that's what editors are for. They fix those
exactly.
things.
That's what they get paid to do.
It's always a collaborative effort. But yeah, it's there's definitely times I reached out to the NHL about this show idea I had before COVID, and they had flown me to New York 3 times. And I think that's still on the table. We're going to talk again during the offseason about me possibly having a show for them. That was definitely me reaching out to them through channels. But yeah, it's been this really cool thing where, the blue check mark on social media and the fact that I've been on TV, kind of every week for 17 years, it opens doors, and you just got to be willing to walk through them when you get that chance.
So would that be, so for me as someone who isn't a professional wrestler, who isn't a professional athlete, yet you have, thankfully through bench clears, I have the opportunity to talk to people like you. What would be, this is such a cliche fucking media question, but I'm going to ask anyway, like, what would be your words of advice, wisdom, whatever nuggets you can give to people who are trying to carve their own paths into having their own shows, having their own businesses, whatever it may be, but they don't have like the platform or the I guess the leverage to really open those doors just by their name,
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big thing is, I mean, if it's something that you believe strongly enough against or whatever, but try not to say no about anything. All of it is going to be a learning experience, and an experience can't be bought, it can't be purchased, it can't be taught. Like it's something that you have to do yourself and figure it out. And when I got into TNA, my first gimmick was I was Canadian. That was my gimmick. I didn't speak. I just was from Canada, and people hated us. I don't know what Canada ever did to the United States, but they hated us.
I personally love Canadians. I just want that on record. I love
Canadians. Everybody does.
Yeah.
And, even wrestling fans, I think, in the end. But yeah, just don't say no and experience it all. And I turned into a comedy wrestler. I had never done comedy wrestling in my life. I didn't know if I could do it or not do it. They just said, this is our idea. And I said, yep, that sounds great. And then I just took that and made it the best. And that turned into a television show. You can look at it any way you want. The reason I got a television show is because I played a funny person in wrestling. That's why it happened. That's how it happened. So yeah, don't say no. Say yes to everything. Do the best that you can with everything that you're given.
And what do you think the Nashville Predators do in the offseason? Do they get back to Stanley Cup form, or what do you think they have to do to get back to that?
Yeah, I don't think they're too far from it. I think that they played the Colorado Avalanche.
That's fair point. That's fair point.
That's Daryl Sutter said it, like it's a waste of 8 days, and I think it ended up being 6 days or 7 days. But they're not far. I think the number one priority, obviously, it's no secret, is they have to re-sign Philip Forsberg, and if he's not willing to play here, they have to replace their best offensive player. Matt Duchene had an unbelievable year, statistically one of his best years ever, broke records for the Predators. And I can tell you, nobody is happier than me for Matt Duchene, except for maybe Matt Duchene, a player that I was telling everybody, this guy's a great player. He's going to be Matt, and he was not himself for the first year, maybe year and a half he played here. Then he turned back into Matt Duchene. So yeah, Forsberg, that's number one. Getting Askarov up and getting him acclimated to the NHL and the NHL system and stuff. I don't know if that happens this year. He's still pretty young. But the truth is the pieces are there. Could they use a little more goal scoring, and could they use, a little bit of more depth on the blue line? Yes, but they've got a ton of great players. I believe that the only reason they didn't get out of the first round is because they played this juggernaut of the Colorado Avalanche. I think if they played any other team in the Western Conference Finals, there was a legitimate chance that they went into the second round.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. And I would love, well, as a Flyers fan, can I offer you Carter Hart for Philip Forsberg? Can I do that? Can I do that? A little bit of a swap?
Yeah, we don't need Carter Hart. We got UC Saros. Other than Shesterkin,
he's worth a shot. It was worth a shot.
It's worth a shot. It's worth a shot. But yeah,
it's always,
I mean, look, I wrote an article on how good I think Carter Hart can be, and I still think that that's realistic. Like you said, in Philadelphia, they've got to get better defensively, and they have to get buy-in from everybody. It's not just the defensemen. I mean, like that era of hockey is done. If your wingers and your centermen aren't back checking and pressuring on the backside, you're dead. You're dead in the water. That style of hockey is over. It needs to be a 200-foot game for everybody. I think Johnny Gaudreau is the most glaring. His best statistical year and his best year as an NHL player was when Daryl Sutter convinced him that he has to play defense. So, there's no secret like that. This is what the NHL is. You have to skate, you have to move, and everyone has to be pulling the rope on defense, or you fall apart.
Yeah, and the game has changed so much that you can't just have like an enforcer line that just beats the crap out of everyone. You got to actually you got to play clean defense now.
Yeah.
So your prediction for the Stanley Cup, just so we have this on record, just in case the first half just got completely fucked up, was it was Colorado versus Tampa, correct?
That's what I predicted at the start of the year. I still believe that happens.
Even after that 6-2 loss for Tampa in game one?
You can look it up. Vasilevsky hasn't lost 2 games in a row in like a decade.
Okay, fair. Okay. All right. Yeah.
You can bet any amount of money. You can take this to the bank. Tampa Bay will not lose game 2.
Okay.
Will not.
That's going on social media. Just want you to know.
I got money on the Rangers playing for the Stanley Cup. I mean, I may make enough money to retire. You'll never see me again if the Rangers play for the Stanley Cup. That's how one-sided the odds were. But if I'm being honest and I'm being a hockey quote unquote analyst, Tampa Bay will not lose game 2.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to grasp that, especially the way they came back in that Toronto series. it's very hard for me to grasp the idea that the Rangers.
That is a real stat. It's not 10 years, but I want to say it's almost 5 years where Vasilevsky hasn't lost 2 games in a row and hasn't lost a game 7 in, I want to say it's like 3. 17 series.
Yeah, it's like, and they're on that series winning streak of 18, 19 straight series wins, which is fucking insane.
We're seeing history as hockey fans. If they win the Stanley Cup, that it will never be done again in our lifetime.
Yeah,
in a salary cap era.
Do you
3
think,
in a row? Never.
Yeah. Do you think it's there's been a lot of conversation of if the Lightning win, how do these 3 straight cups match up against like the Islanders and the Oilers back in the 80s? Do you think that
it's better because of the salary cap?
That's fair. I just
look at that Oilers team. There was 14 guys that are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Team. It's crazy. My only counterpoint would be that the style of play in the 80s was so much more physical. Granted, the skill level wasn't there because of the physicality, but I think it's so much tougher. Like the way those fights happened back in the day, guys were getting slaughtered.
People were getting slaughtered. It was definitely a much more physical game and played at half the speed.
So last thing, any Super Bowl picks? I know you're focused on hockey, but any early Super Bowl predictions?
Yeah, I believe that, judging by the stuff that I've seen so far, the Tennessee Titans defense is going to be a step above. It's going to be really hard for you to score on them. And as long as Derrick Henry returns to form, and I believe that he will, they're going to be a really hard team to beat next year, man. And that's definitely a homer pick. But if you look at the people that they've added at defense, I think Simmons will become one of the best defensive linemen in the league next year. And Derrick Henry is not a human being. I don't care. I've been saying this from the day I saw him at rookie training camp. He caught a swing pass and ran by me on the sidelines. He's not a human being. He's not a human being.
Just look at him. He's an alien from another planet.
He's an alien from another planet.
I've never seen a football player built like that. So any social media, any things you want to plug for the people that are listening to this?
Yeah, just the Eric Young on Twitter, the Eric Young IG. If you say something to me and I don't respond, it's nothing personal. I just have a life, and I have over 600,000 social media followers somehow by accident. Light flex. Yeah, it's a light flex, but it just happens from being on TV for so long. So don't take it personal. It doesn't mean I don't like you or care about you. It just means that I'm busy. I got a wife. I'm probably watching a hockey game or hanging out with my dogs or doing something constructive.
All right. Well, thanks, Eric, so much. Really appreciate you pounding through like technological issues and stuff like that.
Yeah, we got there, man. We got there at the end of the day. All right. Have a good one, Eric.